Tonight, the White House confirming that there was an attempted terrorist act aboard a Delta flight from Amsterdam to Detroit. We have Team Fox coverage on this developing story. Steve Santani is live in Honolulu, where the president is vacationing and has reaction. David Lee Miller live in our New York newsroom with more on the FBI investigation into the incident. But first, we go to Andrea Isom. She's from WJBK, Fox 2. She is live at the Detroit Metro Airport, where the passengers deplaned, their baggage was rescreened, and the suspect was taken into custody. Andrea, what's the latest that you can tell us?
Well, obviously all the passengers are so relieved, but some of them still a bit shaken and scared. You know, they said everything happened so fast. There was chaos for a few seconds, and all of a sudden, it was over. Here's what some of them had to say about what happened.
Breaking news on the Fox report, more on the situation in Detroit. The White House saying it believes the incident aboard that Delta flight was a, quote, attempted act of terrorism. Multiple federal agencies are just trying to figure out at this hour exactly what happened. And David Lee Miller is monitoring developments from our newsroom. David, what do we know about the suspect?
Well, moments ago, you heard Peter King describe him as Abdul Mudallad. Now, a source close to law enforcement tells me it is a four-part name, Umar Farul Abdul Mudallad. He is reportedly from Nigeria. And according to our source, he claimed to airport security that he learned to mix the explosive device, the chemicals, in some type of powder while in Yemen. He is claiming that he was working on behalf of al-Qaida. It is not yet clear if that is a legitimate claim. We've also been told by a source close to law enforcement that he came to the attention of law enforcement about 4 weeks ago that he may have been linked to al-Qaida, but that information was only brought to their attention a few weeks ago, and that's the reason that he was not on any type of a watch list. Additionally now, Jamie, we are just learning now that a publication published in Egypt, a weekly newspaper called Al-Aram, published an article saying that al-Qaida in Yemen had declared that it is going to strike targets in Yemen and targets linked to the United States. This after the Yemeni government launched a series of attacks earlier this month on December 17th, going after terrorist infrastructure there. Among those who may have been killed is a U.S. Imam, Anwar al-Awlaki. He is linked to Nidal Hassan, the major accused of the Fort Hood shootings. So now it appears that there may be some type of a legitimate terror link. Again, it's impossible to know at this time whether this is a single individual with grandiose views or whether or not this is a much broader plot. Jamie?
So the security implications here, we understand the FBI is involved in Homeland Security. What is going on behind the scenes right now to get those answers? I'm Jamie Colby in for Shepard Smith tonight. This is the Fox Report, and it's the bottom of the hour. Time for the top of the news. We have continuing coverage of what a senior White House official is describing as an attempted act of terrorism in Detroit. A man reportedly trying to light some kind of explosive device on board a Delta Airlines flight from Amsterdam. Joining me now, Steve Emerson, counterterrorism expert and executive director of the Investigative Project on Terrorism. He tracks radical Islamic terror. Steve, thanks for being with us.
Sure, Jamie. This is a pretty serious plot. At first, officials were unsure as to whether he was a credible or credible terrorist, but in fact, government officials have confirmed to me that his name was known to them in the last month as somebody who was affiliated with al-Qaida.
If that's the case, the Congressman P. King on Homeland Security told us he didn't show up on a watch list. Why
Right.
would that be?
Because they didn't have enough information showing his ties to al-Qaida. Apparently this was intel that was second-hand source information. So what happens is he gets listed in some type of big database where he was listed as suspected of having affiliations with al-Qaida, but they would wait to get more intel before they watch-listed him. They were in the process of collecting that intel. Now, it's interesting that the plot comes 2 days after the strike in Yemen against the al-Qaida leaders who were assembling in southern Yemen, in which Anwar al-Awlaki, the Yemeni cleric, was suspected of having been killed. We don't know still at this point whether he was killed or not, but I would say to you that it's not a coincidence that this plot occurred right now, 2 days after the airstrike.
Steve, the device, there are reports, was produced with elements that came from Yemen, and Congressman King mentioned that it was a device that may have evaded security measures, something different than had been used before. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, apparently that is the case, that he was able to smuggle on explosives that were sufficiently serious enough that could have brought down the airplane. In fact, he ended up second and third degree burns. But how he smuggled the explosive on and what exactly the device was that would have detonated, I don't know at this point. The government does know that. They haven't released that information yet.
Steve, I have to ask you to stand by and let's both listen to Sagid Jaffrey. He was a passenger on board the Delta flight. Mr. Jaffrey, thank you for being with us. I know you were sitting several rows behind the suspect who was taken away with third-degree burns. What did you see? What did you hear?
Actually, I was in front of 3 or 4 rows, front of him, yes. Basically what happened is, in terms of, like I said before, I think there was a pop and everybody kind of startled and then say, what is that? And then a few seconds later there was just like a little bit sting and some smoke and then we see some